Recovery from Anything features real stories that some listeners might find distressing. Check the show notes for specific content warnings and information on support services.
I remember thinking, I can't understand how I'm never going to see him again. What? How? And is he okay? Because he's your child at the end of the day. And you don't put him to bed and you're thinking, how do I know he's all right?
Welcome to Recovery from Anything. I'm your host, Abby Feltham. Loss has the power to reshape our lives in unimaginable ways. It's a journey of heartache, confusion, and, ultimately, of discovering the strength to carry on. My own experience of loss was losing my father to suicide when I was a child. I grew up angry mostly at this mystery man who I barely spent any time with, but who I loved deeply. Alongside my rage was a strong sense of yearning, of longing for what was missing, a role that was never filled, a part never played. I never got to know him or understand him, learn his likes and his dislikes, hear his laugh, see him grow old. But he was a part of me, and I was a part of him. When it comes to loss, what if it was the other way round, and it was the parent who lost the child? Here's Matt Pink.
I was born in America, in Salt Lake City, Utah, and moved over to sort of like Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire area with my parents, moved around a few times and settled in Milton Keynes and spent most of my childhood, well, pretty much all my childhood there. It's a bit of a nothing town that's sort of purpose-built. It's basically a commutersville because you can buy a house out there for nothing and you can get on the train in 30 minutes and you're in central London. So it's that's sort of what the place is known for, if you like. So it's a bit of a funny area because got London overspill and no one's sort of really born and bred there really because it's such a new town. I was super fortunate, because I had a really good upbringing. We lived in a nice house. Don't get me wrong, we weren't rich or anything, but it was just a nice house. My parents were together. They had jobs. But I definitely wasn't spoiled and I didn't get a lot in terms of if I was asking for a new football shirt, I would have to wait for a birthday or a Christmas. But it was just nice. I just had a nice time really. Nothing of any interest, particularly either way, good, bad or ugly, happened. It was fairly straightforward. I had two sisters, played football a lot. Grew up at a reasonably good school, but obviously like most schools around there, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but I was all right. I was full of energy, knew what I wanted, quite good at football, so fairly popular in terms of rankings in the school, so I always felt quite good about myself. I didn't have any sort of negativity or I wasn't bullied or anything, so my childhood is full of happy memories, summer memories, playing around with my friends outside the park and being out till all hours. And I'd say it's a fairly normal childhood as well. My story is almost super normal until 30 years old. I thought I'd sort of made it because I was married, I had a nice house I bought, I had a decent job, I was driving a nice car, I had a daughter, I had a son, so I had 2.4 children. And that was where it started to go wrong because tragically I lost my son all of a sudden. He died in 2013, which was 10 years ago now. And it was obviously horrendous shock. Just died of sudden infant death syndrome, which is essentially cot death. But he was nearly 5 months old, so it's quite old to have cot death. So he'd obviously been around a bit. He was sitting up, he was saying the odd word. So it was pretty fucking tragic. My relationship with alcohol changed almost overnight because although I was a drinker, I was a drinker, and as a normal drinker that grew up around, in the UK, drunk at the park, smoking the odd joint, nothing major, but just kind of was drinking a fair amount, probably 5 days out of 7. But when that happened, I remember thinking to myself on the day, making sure I remember I specifically buying 4 cans of Stella and have it, and that sort of lasted about 5 seconds. When something like that happens, you look around, you look around your close circle and you go, okay, fuck, I am fucked here. What do I do? I look at my wife, she's fucked. I look at my parents, they're fucked. And you think, okay, there's only one answer here, which is, I'm the man of the house. I'm going to have to sort of plod on with it and just keep going. And that's where my relationship with alcohol changed, because I sort of thought that took the edge off, and that would, along with some sleeping pills, would knock me out as well and enable me to sort of get up and tick another day off. And that was what I did for quite a long time, until that became a problem on top of a problem. I remember thinking, I can't understand how I'm never going to see him again. And that's weirdly one of the things I struggled to cope with, was like not knowing he's all right. Especially being a kid, you just like, as a parent, you're like, what? Because there's the obvious challenges logistically of having to arrange a funeral, tell everybody, carry him down the aisle at the funeral. There's those physical challenges. But then there's just the thing you sit there with, where you're just like, what? I'm like, what? How? And is he okay? Because it's your child at the end of the day. And you don't put him to bed, and you're thinking, how do I know he's all right? Someone said to me, like, time is a healer. And that was sort of one of the worst things to say to me, because I was thinking, well, what can I do that's going to make time go quick? Well, drinking makes time go quick. Drugs makes time go quick. So if I just go in a drinky, druggy hole for a bit, then I'm going to be fine in 2 years' time. Like, naively, legit thought that. And I was still functioning and still doing my job, and had a good job. And so I was really grinding all the gears, trying to pass through this time and make sure it was all right. But what was happening was I was feeling worse. I was using more drink, using more drugs, going through the night sniffing gear, going for a second night sniffing gear, still going to work and holding the job and trying to hold meetings whilst not having any sleep and being internally broken. It just got to a point where I just didn't care about anything at all. It's a weird feeling. It's almost like liberating. Like, you legitimately do not care. But I didn't have the bollocks to sort of kill myself. So I was trying to do it. I was hoping someone was going to just wipe me out, or, just going to not wake up one day. And that was where I got to. And that meant that my relationship with my wife broke down. She kept the house, and I was out on my ear and had a bag full of stuff. And then I genuinely didn't know where I was going to be, what I was going to do. And I sort of felt a weird sense of relief that marriage was over, because I thought, well, I'm gradually starting to lose it all now, which is almost, I was flirting with. I wanted to lose everything. I wanted to sort of like do it one by one. I was waiting for it to get sacked, but they wouldn't seem to sack me for some reason. I was like trying my best to get everything like bad to happen. And that was the first cog. And I was like, almost like, oh, good, that's the first thing done. But I also didn't know where I was sleeping logistically and what I was doing. And also had to face the fact I wasn't going to live with my kids. My work were really good. They put me in some counselling, some of the best counsellors in London. And I'd gone there, and I just had sat opposite these people in like Holborn. And I remember just thinking, this is a really posh office. These are really clever people. They're going to sort me out. I just didn't have any connection with them whatsoever. I went to another one. I went to 3 sessions with this guy. I changed the guy to a girl. I was just like, it's not working for me. And out of sort of desperation, my mum and sister had been to see like mediums and spiritualists. And I'd always thought it's like bullshit and whatever. But I just thought, out of desperation, I'm going to go. And so I went to see this woman, and I just rang, got it out of the paper. I rang her up, didn't know who she was, called my, just said, I'm Matt, I want to come down. She booked me in for Tuesday after work, went down there. And I was sort of like a bit nervous going in, and went to see her. And when I walked in, she was really nice and really warming. And just remember feeling quite at ease in her house. She started telling me all this stuff, and it was 30 minutes, so she pressed like go on a timer. There's this big timer on the wall. And I just remember thinking, okay, this is quite interesting. She was telling me stuff about my job. It was completely nothing to do with him. And all the stuff that she was telling me was like making total sense. And the stuff that really random that she would never have known about the thing I was thinking about changing in my job, and am I going up a ladder or down a ladder, and loads of stuff that was really specific. So I essentially buying my trust, really. And I was like buying into it all. And then at the end of it, she was like, I've got someone who wants to speak to you. And I was like, okay. And they were like, they've got 2 people behind you, actually. And she was like, there's a woman, and she's like, there's an older woman, it's your great grandma. And I was like, and that sort of was a bit like, yeah, of course it is, like it always is in the old mediums. But she was like, she's showing me something. She's trying to show me something over your shoulder. And I was like, okay, what is it? And she was like, it's your son. And I was just like, oh my God. And I just burst out crying. And I was just like, what? And she was like, she's trying to tell you that he's okay. She's got him, and he's a reoccurring spirit. and he's fine. And I just had this like immense, obviously, outburst of emotion, but also just like relief. I said to her, like, this is the first time, you don't understand, it's the first time I've actually felt relief since this has happened. I'm just so grateful. Like, what can I do? Can I come back again? Like, and she said, as she held my hand, she said, don't worry, darling, if we ever need you, we'll come to you. And I just thought to myself, that's weird, but whatever. And I sort of I bounced out there, and I sort of felt right again for a bit. I sort of came back to life a bit, even started like running or go to the gym and stuff. But it didn't last very long because I'd got drink and drugs were too sort of like ingrained in me. They came back at the weekend. It ended up being a Monday or Tuesday. Fast forward another year or so of sort of destruction and trying to make sure time's a healer and all that, and didn't know what I was doing, where I was going. And I was outside this pub in Regent Street, which I always drank at. It was like I think a 3-day in situation, like multiple bags of gear, multiple drinks, like running out of room in my nose to get it up. I was outside having a fag, which I was also smoking as well, just doing everything I can to sort of get anything harmful in me. And then this guy came up to me outside this bar, and he was just like, started speaking to me really fast. And he was just reeling off all this stuff. Like, you need to stop doing this. You need to stop doing that. You're going to live a long life. You're going to be really successful. You're going to live to your 96. You're going to help people. You're going to help people. You're going to help people. And he was putting this bit of paper in my hand, and he like scrunched it up, and he was holding my hand and he was talking to me, and he was like, you're really close to a flower, really close to a flower, really close to a flower. And he's like repeating all these things loads of times. There's a girl, she's called K, I'm getting a K. And I was like, K, flower. And then he was like saying something about a star, and he was saying something about all this stuff that meant something to me. And I was like, that's really weird. And he was telling me, you need to stop doing these things and you can help people. And he was like making the gestures of like smoking and drinking. And it was really weird. And then this lasted about 20 minutes and he sort of disappeared. And I was with my mate Ryan, thank God, because I think no one would have believed me. And when he went, I opened it, paid this scroll on a bit of paper. And it just said, I had 2 sisters, no brothers. It said flower equals Lily, which is my daughter's name. K equals Kirsty, who I'd just met on Tinder, was sort of seen once, but was thinking, like, I don't know where that's going to lead. And the star, where I just had a star tattoo on my wrist of the same star he drew on the bit of paper. And I was like, and that was for my son, the star tattoo. And I was like, what? What I realized that moment was that was the spiritual world sort of coming back to get me when I needed them. But also that just gave me like an immense sense of purpose again. And so the way I describe it is like someone put me back on the track and told me, almost, because no one tells you, like no one tells you stop doing drugs. Your parents don't say to you stop drinking, stop doing drugs, and then you'll be all right. No one tells you that because you're a grown man, and also that they're drinking as well. It was just pure instructions of someone telling me what I needed to do, what I needed to hear, and having that really weird thing where he said I was going to live till I was 96 and I was going to help lots of people. And at the time, I thought I was going to live till like the next day. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe that isn't the path for me. Maybe this is the path for me. Maybe I do need to stop. And actually, I've known all along that I'm a good human. Like, I'm a nice boy. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I grew up in a nice place. I'm not a nasty person. I've never punched anyone in the face. I've never been horrible to anyone. I'm just a decent person. But when I was drinking and doing drugs, I was falling out with people, and I was doing things and saying things that just I couldn't relate to, that like weren't me. And I think that's the danger of doing drugs in particular, is you do things that just aren't you. You can't recognize. Drinking, I think you can recognize bits of, and I think you can say, yeah, I was being a bit of a dick then. But when you do drugs, it's just you end up becoming someone you're not. And I think that was enough for me to sort of like definitely stop doing that and sort of cut back everything and refine who I am and just go on a bit of a soul searching mission and rediscover my purpose and who I was. But it wasn't like immediate that I didn't stop drinking and stuff. But if what it was immediate was it made me see Kirsty and move in with Kirsty almost overnight. But she's not a mug. So she was like, you can be with me, but you're not coming home after a night on the gear, or you're not doing this. And she like put some ground rules in me, and I've sort of respected her straight away and also needed that. So that enabled me to sort of, okay, I can live my life. We joined a gym together. We started a relationship. So it was quite nice to have that sort of fresh outlook on things again. We started having the kids regularly and started setting into a pattern with that. So hope was returning, and we went on holidays, all the things you think you lost when you had a family, you had a house, and you had that 2.4 children outlook on life. You go from that to having a bag of shit and not knowing where you're going to sleep at night. You lose hope that you'll never go to a garden centre for a coffee again with your family, or you'll never go on holiday again with your family. When you start integrating that and laying that back in, even though it's not the way you thought it was going to happen, you realise that actually there is hope. You trust the process, I suppose, that it will lead you to a better place than you were at before.
It's really inspiring, that trust in the process. One of the main barriers for people, like, in changing their lives and transforming themselves, is that commitment. It's like, what is going to happen in the future?
Yeah, like surrender.
Yeah, surrender. But and when you surrender, you're literally kind of like handing it over and just having faith in whatever.
And that's the thing. I think what I've realized with that is where people get frustrated with surrender, or they don't understand surrender, is that they think that it means everything good is going to come to you. But what it means is you're surrendering to whatever happens and being comfortable with that. And I think, so if I die tomorrow, then I'm comfortable with that. And if I don't, I'm comfortable with that. And actually, death and life, who knows what happens anyway? Like, not much matters. And actually, life is pretty beautiful if you find the beautiful things to focus on. And it's your choice, isn't it? You can go outside, focus on the trees, listen to the birds, or you can concentrate on the pollution coming out of the back of a car that's driving past the trees and the birds. You choose whatever you want to focus on, and you live that life. And I choose to focus on the positive things all the time. Choose to focus on the fact that life will be what it is. I'm not going to go down the road of going, fuck it, life's going to be what it is, so I'm going to destroy myself. I believe that the purpose of life is to try and live in alignment with yourself. That's the journey I'm on, is trying to figure that bit out. So I think once you do that, you live a sense of freedom, which I think freedom is the thing we're all trying to find. And I don't mean financial freedom, I mean just freedom from life. What is my life like now? Well, I'd say it's probably the best it's ever been in terms of how I feel about every day. I'm now in a position where I'm getting up, I'm doing what I love, I'm working out, I've got a healthy mind, I'm helping people, I've got drive, we're helping people with that. That's at the start of this journey. And I feel like we're starting to do something that's really going to maybe change the world a little bit. My only ever concerns are sort of financially, because I've got so many kids and stuff. And the absence of that concern, I think my life is almost perfect, really. I make sure I sort of tell the world that I'm grateful, and I go for runs and I speak to the sky and I say how grateful I am for everybody's like health and happiness and the life and family we've got. And we've got a very even good relationship with my ex-wife, and my wife and her are good friends, so that the relationship between the kids, they see them bouncing from one house to the other quite happily. So yeah, I'd say we're doing well, and excited about the future as well, because there's lots more I've got planned, which is really exciting. My goal now is like I said to you before, is like the alignment thing for me is, I know that when I've flirted with being in alignment, when I say alignment, I mean my sleeping is on point, my eating is on point, my movement is on point, my connection is on point, I'm working a job that I love, I'm helping people, and I've got these sort of 8 or 9 pillars that when they're all aligned, I feel fucking great. So I think my goal now is to keep working on that, to keep stretching myself, to keep playing and tweaking the dials, to make sure I refine myself so that I know exactly where that is, because I've got close to it and then I've fallen off, and then I've started new things and I've fallen off. So I just think my game is to try and really want to do more spiritually. I would love to tap into that more. I've gone from someone who doesn't believe in any of that shit to someone who now knows that runs every bit of my life and everyone's life, in my opinion. It made me realize that nothing matters really, and nothing is, it's all up to the gods or the universe or whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, what happens in life. You just have to take the signs and do the right things, and they'll do right by you. And I genuinely believe that now, which is the crazy way of looking at it, and it shows my opinion on spirituality, is almost like that was supposed to break me. I was supposed to not be married to her. I was supposed to not live there. And the reason is this made me now the person I am, and I'm able to now help multiple people around the world, because I know that if I can come back from that, then they can come back from their own version of rock bottom as well. So I'm almost would say I was grateful for that experience, which is pretty powerful place to be, I think.
Last question, and I'll let you get on with your morning. It's a question I'm asking everyone at the end. What does recovery mean to you?
I think I've recovered from my incident and got myself back on track. And I think that's taken a 10-year journey of self-destruction. I suppose no one's ever asked me that question before, and it's really interesting to answer it, because I would normally say, like, it doesn't mean anything to me. But obviously, having recovered, I think there's always that awareness that I can be triggered into that state by a sense of loss, and that's already happened to me. So I think now I'm trying to build myself a shell, a coat of armor that is physical, is mental, is connection, is everything that means that if something happens to me, or when something happens to me, either to me or my family, that's going to risk me going down that path of self-destruction again, I've done the best possible job I can in building myself to be as strong as I can to deal with a situation that are inevitable and also are intentional and part of the bigger journey. And like I said, like the universe, everything always happens for a reason. So having that sort of sense of knowledge that I've been through it before, I can get through it again, and I've just got to keep driving forward and moving myself forward and trying to be the best version I can for the people that are with me and surrounded by me and influenced by me in this day.
You've been listening to Recovery from Anything. I'm your host, Abby Feltham. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review the show, and join the community on Instagram @recoveryfromanything. You can find out more about this week's storyteller, or submit a story of your own, on our website, recoveryfromanything.com. Thank you for listening.